From the campus of Xavier University, WBOK Go and Equity Media Station.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A new Loyola Marymount report shows homelessness in Los Angeles dropped 10% last year.
Everyone knows that in the city of Los Angeles, we have over 40,000 Angelenos who sleep on the street, and 3 or 4 of them did not wake up this morning.
Black Mayor Karen Bass credits prevention efforts like We Are LA, which supports residents facing eviction and connects them to caseworkers. Permanent housing placements have nearly doubled since 2022. Rapper Tory Lanez is in stable condition after being stabbed 14 times in a California prison. The rapper, serving 10 years for shooting Megan Thee Stallion, suffered collapsed lungs and was briefly on a breathing machine. And Tyree Nichols' family is condemning vigilante justice flyers shared after 3 black Memphis officers were acquitted. Their lawyers say the family was not involved and remains focused on ongoing civil and federal cases. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It's now time for Let's Elevate, the Arnie and Cary Show with Arnie Filko and Cary Grant.
And we are on air. This is the Let's Elevate Show with Arnie Filko and Cary Grant. I'm Cary Grant.
And this is Arnie Filko.
Hi,
Good
Arnie.
evening, Mr. Grant. How are you?
I'm doing great. Seems like it's been a long time since we've talked.
Yeah. Well, I took a brief or long weekend to New York City, my wife and I, to see our grandkids, and
That's great.
we missed the show on Thursday, but back in New Orleans, always happy to be back and back on the air with elevated conversations.
Yes.
Lots have happened, man.
Oh, God.
In just a few days. I was thinking, starting on the sports scene, we left town and Derek Carr announces that he is retiring from football.
Yes.
Which puts Tyler's show probably in the spotlight. Certainly I would say the front runner right now, maybe to start, although there'll be some competition with,
Yes.
Spencer Rattler and Hayner. But
Yes.
3 very young quarterbacks. That's an interesting situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was surprised and not surprised by Carr's retirement because I figured he was up to something. But the good part about it is it'll help us with the salary cap.
Hallelujah.
That's Wick. I'm not going to deny what you're saying, Wick, but I just got to tell a story about it, Arnie. I was in the grocery store when it happened, when it went down. And the clerk at the store said, "Are you a Saints fan?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Derek Carr retired." And it started getting around the store. And I can't tell you, I didn't realize, I knew people didn't like Derek Carr, but it was almost euphoric in the store. I was like, wow, this is really something. So it was more of a reaction than I thought it would be. But But I kind of figured he was not going to play this year one way or the other. And like I said, the best part about this is it'll help free up salary cap space in the future. So that's probably the best part of the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, when he first came to town, I think people really liked him. I mean, he had a little bit of Drew's personality, community guy, family guy, but, he just never showed it on the field. And he got hurt, and I think a lot of people at that point just said, you know what, this is not the answer. And
well, he got tied up in the whole Dennis Allen thing because he had been with Allen and at the Raiders, and Dennis Allen was very disliked. It was going to be hard, as I said many times. It was going to be hard to follow Drew Brees as a quarterback because if you aren't a Hall of Famer, I mean, you're going to always be compared to him here because of what he brought to New Orleans. And it was always going to be hard to follow Sean Payton. Those two are iconic guys who brought a lot of success. And what people have to understand, not only did they win a Super Bowl, but for years the team was a very much a juggernaut, a winning team, a very appealing team that people could really get behind and always in the fight. And I think that always was going to be a problem. And any kind of drop-off, and they've had a lot of drop-off, is going to have to – the people are going to naturally gravitate towards the quarterback and the coach as the reason why that failure happened.
Yeah, no question. I mean, it's hard to replace, somebody that's had such great success. And, Drew Brees, an incredible quarterback, maybe the most acclaimed quarterback, and certainly in the history of this franchise.
Absolutely, yes.
And it's hard to follow Sean Payton, after bringing a Super Bowl here. But I will say this, with Carr retiring now, it really gives the new coaching staff a chance to build it on their own.
Yeah.
And to determine what kind of quarterback, what kind of offense do they want, who fits that model. And, they've been bringing in a lot of players, and, they signed a big receiver, People Jones, who had some success with the Browns and with the Lions before. So, it's going to be, I think, a pretty interesting season, and, coming up. And tomorrow, by the way, is, everybody looks forward to the big day where they release the schedule. So tomorrow night, the world will know, where the Saints' 17 games are, and, what the dates are. And, for visiting fans especially coming to New Orleans, that's a big thing because they like to set, their vacations around that trip.
Yeah, I mean, the holiday games, as I said before, we sit behind the visitors bench, and it's always filled with people from out of town. That's exactly what they do. It's a big tourism thing. They come for the entire weekend, sometimes for a whole week, and stay and enjoy the city and go to the game. And I mean, I think that's great. This is a destination for football, definitely.
No doubt. The other news in the sports field before we move on to, maybe more important stuff is last night was the NBA lottery.
Yes.
And I think the Pels' bad luck just keeps going. They had a 14% chance as the fourth worst team record-wise to get the number one seed. Not only did they not get the number one draw, but they actually dropped to number 7. Which is just bad luck, really bad luck with the bouncing of the ping pong balls.
Well, I think, Arnie, I'll say this, and not that I generate many conspiracy theories, but in sports, I kind of hear some of them. But honestly, they need to start showing the ping pong balls dropping, because somebody with a 1.8% chance of being the first pick, getting the first pick, means they probably had one ping pong ball. And it's like, the other people had 7, 8 balls, whatever it was, and for them to fall in the ways that they did, and basically the top team, Utah, not even being in the top 4 is just truly amazing statistically. So I think they need to start showing that part of it again. They had the security guy come out with the envelopes, but I think people are going to be like, we want to see this process from beginning to end.
Yeah, I am also not one for conspiracy, but I tend to agree with you. It's funny that Dallas, which the Mavericks won the number one selection. It's funny that they've had such consternation for the last 2 months after trading Luka to the Lakers.
Right.
And what was it when the Pels got Zion? It was the same thing. They were not one of the very top teams, right?
Well, we can go all the way back to when LeBron miraculously ended up at Cleveland. He was from Akron, so and they weren't supposed to get that pick either. So it's just it always kind of rubs you the wrong way. And like you said, because of all the controversy with Dallas, to have them come in first after basically their fans and everything seemed like they were about to abandon the team completely. This is very, very odd, very strange. Yeah. But like you said, it may be totally on the up and up, but it just seems very peculiar.
Well, it is.
And that's why sports, Arnie, just being honest with you, that's why sports is great, because you can have those kind of debates and you can talk about that for 20 years and grind on it forever. And that's what makes sports fun.
It is. Well, just on a last sports note, I'm very happy because everybody knows from prior shows my son works for the Knicks.
Yes.
The Knicks are one game away
Orange and
from
blue skies.
advancing to the championship, and I think they're going to do it.
I do too.
Jason Tatum looks like he tore an Achilles, so I think he's done.
Yeah.
And, if the Knicks get to the championship round of the Eastern Conference, they have a legitimate shot of winning an NBA title, which
Absolutely.
That would be really fun. I never got the Saints ring. I would love for my son to have a ring.
That would be fabulous. That would be fabulous. And let me tell you something about New York, because we both have people in New York and all that kind of stuff. But today they came out with if they have a Game 6, which I don't think they'll have a Game 6 against Boston back in the Garden, the seats on the third row in the stadium are going for $19,000 right now. So if they had a finals game there, God knows how much a ticket would cost in Madison Square Garden. It would be incredible.
I think our producer Wick ought to buy 3 seats for us, and we'll hop a flight if need be later
I
this
think
week.
he's shaking his head. Yes, I'm okay with that.
We'll do a remote. We're doing a remote
for there.
That's a negative.
All right, well, Cary, now let's get a little serious. I do want to, last Thursday, we both missed the show. You had a very good reason because you were at the gala for Xavier University and Dr.
Which was
Francis.
Fabulous event.
Yeah, talk about that just for those that may not have been there.
Yeah, Xavier's celebrating 2 very, very wonderful things this year. 2025 is 100 years of the university being founded in 1925 and 25 years of Catherine Drexel's sainthood. So it was a gala mainly about the 100-year centennial, and it honored the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament, and it honored the who are the sisters of the order that Catherine Drexel was in, and it honored Norman Francis, who was the president for 47 years at Xavier. And it was a fabulous event filled with people, all the people that you could name in the state of Louisiana practically were there. All the people from New Orleans, but people like the former governor, John Bell Edwards, was there. There was a surprise guest, and I want to talk about him for a second. Magic Johnson showed up. He was a surprise guest. He has a relationship with the Francis family, and he just because he was there, he dropped $500,000 on the university for scholarships.
I saw that, yes.
And overall, they raised, before the Magic Johnson thing, they raised about $1.7 million that night in scholarship funds, which was really spectacular. So it was a great event. I was really glad to be part of it.
That's really phenomenal. Dr. Francis is,
yes,
has been and is, such a tremendous leader, for so many years in this city. And
truly an icon, yes.
And has a great family, by the way. I know you and I both know David and Tim, I think, and, just a terrific family for New Orleans, and they've done so much for Xavier. And I have to tell you, Dr. Verrett has been there for more than a decade, I think.
Yeah,
now.
About 12 years now. Yes.
Yeah, is also following in those footsteps, just doing a phenomenal job raising money. Creating a med school for Xavier. Yeah. I mean, just some very, very exciting stuff.
They're breaking ground on the new dormitory here, on new campus facilities that they've raised money for, and just heading in a tremendously right direction. One thing that was very touching to me, because I am an alumni, was they talked about the fact that Dr. Francis, being at Xavier for so long, probably has graduated more African American and people of color, and actually had something to do with them than anybody in the history of the United States. So that was a very touching moment, and it was very true, because 47 years, I mean, he's basically done that.
Well, what an honor, what a distinction, and
Arnie, we have a caller. Let's get to them.
Wonderful.
Yeah, Elmore, you on the line?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hi.
How you doing today?
Hey, Mr. Elmore, how you doing tonight?
Hey, man, always a pleasure to hear you and Cary. How y'all doing today, man?
We're doing great.
We're doing great, thank you.
Look, I was, I just caught you, and you really had my antennas rolling up when I heard. I watch a very good program. I don't know if you all watch C-SPAN, but I watch it as often as I can, because you get a lot of good information when you about your country and everything, But I seen something that really blew my antenna up about historic HBCUs. Do you not know? I never had the clue of the role that HBCUs played during World War II. And a lot of people don't have a clue. No, a lot of people don't have a clue with Southern, Howard, Spelman, Southern University. I mean, they don't even have a clue that these young men and women that went to the historic universities, the contribution they put in the war effort for us to win a war. So it's good when you look at programs because you think you know something. You come to find out, I realize, don't laugh, Ernie, I realize how unknowledgeable I'm not when I think I am,
Well, and let's not forget the Tuskegee Airmen, which is absolutely one of
yes,
the greatest
sir, you're absolutely right.
stories.
Yes, sir, you're absolutely right. They were a trailblazer.
Yes, absolutely.
No, I mean,
and
first of all, you're right about C-SPAN. I watch it as well. I like watching in the morning. They have something called Washington Journal, where you could call in on either as a Democrat or Republican or somebody unaffiliated, and you can make whatever comment you want. It's not edited, and it's really great. You learn a lot of perspective from different people that make those calls.
Well, I want to add something historically that maybe you know or don't know in terms of Tuskegee Airmen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what a lot of people don't understand, when you look at World War II, the Tuskegee Airmen don't get is not all the credit they deserve to get, because what happened, if you can remember, during World War II, we were bombing England, and the United States was bombing Germany 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to the point we were losing so many B-17s, and England was losing what they call Lancaster bombers.
Yeah.
They were losing like flies. And at the time, we didn't have a plane could escort the fighters from the sites in Europe to Germany and back. So when the Mustang came to be, it was a game changer, because the Mustang could go escort the fighters all the way to the bombing run and back without losing a plane.
Yeah. That's true. Yes.
So a lot of people don't know that, brother?
Yes. And they were some of the first who used those planes. So, yes, that's very important. Thank you, Mr. Elmer, for calling. We appreciate that.
Oh,
really,
man,
really
appreciate
it.
You gave me a chance. You gave me a chance to think,
Hey, Mr. Elmer, before you leave, I had the honor some years ago, if you know the Roberts, Sally Ann Roberts, who was a local personality here at WWL, and Robin Roberts, who was a sports announcer. Their father, if I believe I have this history, their father was part of the Tuskegee Airmen, and I remember attending an event where they talked about his role in combat, and it was really amazing. I mean, they played such an instrumental role in really winning the war for the Allies. And, I think there's been obviously movies about it. The shame of it, really for America, the shame of it is that these folks who represented us, who defended our country and our democracy, then had to come back in the mid-40s to a country that was discriminatory.
Yes. And,
not just them, but all other, servicemen of color as well. But during the war, whether it's the Tuskegee Airmen, whether it's infantry, they served exceptionally well in representing the country. And I think we owe a debt of gratitude, and we need to keep telling stories like that.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Mr. Elmore.
Being a Vietnam vet, I can appreciate that. I was in Vietnam when I was 19, so I really appreciate what you're saying. Thank you, brother.
We're going to take a short break.
Thank you for your
service.
We'll be right back. Thank you, Mr. Elmore, for your service.
Thank you, sir.
We'll be right back.
New Orleans, are you ready? A fresh voice in the city is here, bringing you the beats, the culture, and the stories that matter. From local music and food to real talk on what's happening in the streets. We've got you covered. Stay tapped in. Follow us on all platforms at WBLK 1230 for the latest updates and exclusive content. Your city, your culture, your news. Don't just hear about it, be about it. Follow WBLK 1230 now.
New Orleans never sleeps, and neither does WBOK. Now, every voice, every moment, and every show is in your pocket. Search WBOK Media wherever you get podcasts. Download, share, rate us 5 stars. Because when you support us, you amplify Black voices and the New Orleans culture.
Late nights are made for chillin', and you can do just that every Sunday night at 10 p.m. as DJ Wick brings you The Love Zone. It's the perfect way to top off your weekend with your favorite old and new school ballads. So sit back, relax, and let DJ Wick take you to the Love Zone on WBOK and on the World Wide Web at WBOK1230.com.
Hey, this is D. Riley from the 90s Hits R&B Jams. Make sure you listen to WBOK 1230 AM every Saturday night from 7 until 9 p.m. I'll be giving you the best R&B jams from the 90s. That's right, all your favorites and more. With me, D. Riley, your host of the 90s Hits, right here on WBOK 1230 AM, or listen online at WBOK1230.com. WBOK, the station you listen to longer.
WBOK, online at WBOK1230.com.
The Arnie and Cary Show with Arnie Philco and Cary Grant.
And we are back.
We are back. Cary's in studio tonight. I'm a little bit under the weather, trying to recover, so I'm at home, but hopefully we'll be back with Cary in person tomorrow. And
okay.
Cary, I had to fly out of Newark yesterday.
Oh God.
And That is something going on. You know, I didn't know about it yesterday. I probably would have taken a train home, but you know, apparently they had yet another outage yesterday.
Oh God!
You know, that just can't happen. I got to tell you. I mean, that's the awful. Third episode where pilots have been dark with air control. You know, in terms of flying in and out of airports.
Yeah,
and. That's a rare, even though there is a protocol, and I read about it today. I mean, I think it's relatively safe. The fact is that just can't happen. You can't go dark, you know, with our ATC system.
No, it's very clear that, you know, and of course they want to blame this on the Biden administration, but it's very clear that since Trump came in and the first thing they messed with was the FAA, because I think that Musk wanted to do something with his crazy satellite system or something like that. But the firing of people and the not dealing with the infrastructure is obviously causing huge headaches in the flying community. And with the summer coming with many more people about to fly, this is not the type of thing. One airport goes down and it causes problems everywhere. And I heard Sunday that the Atlanta airport had some similar problems, and that's the busiest airport in the world. So that can't happen.
No, it definitely cannot happen, and sometimes it's better to not know and to know. So I'm glad I had not received that information when I got on the plane. So I just want to say, you know, we got a lot of things happening in our own area and in the state that we want to talk about tonight and this week. Just want to, you know, we sit here a lot and bash our president, and so I'm going to give some kudos for a minute here to our president, because this week right now has some incredible potential from an international perspective. Number one, there was a tentative deal reached on tariffs for China, where we took down the tariffs on China to 30%, and they took it down to 10%. The stock market, as a result of that news, you know, skyrocketed up. I think it was down today, but it was way up yesterday. And, you know, that's important. I mean, given the amount of trade we have with China, it's not a final deal. They're going to take some time to negotiate that. But, you know, I think that's a very positive thing. There was a deal reached on tariffs with Britain as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know that anybody really knows the final answer to this tariff stuff. I mean, I think most people, including you and I, probably think this is a really bad policy. Yes. But I do think we probably got to give it a little time here and see if in his madness and craziness, if this ultimately maybe does benefit, you know, the country. We'll see. I would say I'm willing to at least say that the jury's out still until that. And then, you know, of course, we've got a lot of things happening on the global front. There was a hostage, an Israeli-American hostage released yesterday.
Yeah.
That's the last American that Hamas has been holding. Thursday is going to be a fascinating day because Putin gave a speech at 1 a.m. a couple nights ago saying, I'm not going to deal with ceasefire, but I'm willing to have direct discussions with Ukraine.
Yeah.
So the Ukrainian president immediately said, I'll be there in Turkey. I will be there personally, and I hope you, Russian President Putin, will be there as well. That's fascinating to see what may or may not come out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you got the president, negotiating with Iran. This is like their fourth or fifth negotiation. They keep saying that it's positive. So I will say this, for a president that was basically saying, hands off, I'm not going to get too involved. I mean, we're involved in negotiations in Gaza, Israel, Ukraine, Russia, Iran, and the president's in Saudi Arabia on his way to Qatar and the UAE in the next 2 days. So doesn't seem like too much of an isolationist president, does it?
Yeah, I mean, the America First thing is kind of turning around in that sense. But what worries me is, as always, is how much can you count on this guy and his people to really get anything accomplished? I mean, they're great at blustering and great at getting things set up, but actual execution, if they execute half these things, it'd be great. But I'm worried about that part too, and I don't know how much leverage we have with anybody in the credibility world of even like with the tariff thing of one day we're at 145, then we're at 30 because, and we're trying to say we didn't fold. We went below what we used to have as tariffs. So it's like you said, and I don't know what that means economically for people's goods or whatever, because there's still some shortages that have already been started because of the slowdown that happened already. So the person at home is just worried about how much the food is going to cost at the store or clothes or whatever. They're not really worried about. And I think that a lot of this happened because they were very concerned about the supply chain being disrupted when people go back to school shopping and stuff like that. That's when the consumer will really see some things really happening. So
right.
I'm with you. I mean, you got to be optimistic. You got to hope for the best. I mean, nobody wants to be in all this chaos that we're in, but you just hope that these things work out, and you hope that Putin is not just playing with him too, because those meetings can happen. Zelensky can be there, and Putin could send like some third minister who has no authority to those meetings. So hopefully something does come out of it.
We're going to see. I mean, I'll give credit to the Ukrainian president, Zelensky, because he called Putin's bluff. He said, what, I'll be there in person.
I think you're absolutely right about that, Arnie. I thought the same thing when it happened, that he was basically saying, oh, you want me to be there? Yeah, I'll be there. It's like, because...
And now Trump wants to come too. He wants to fly over. He's in that area, and he wants to be there. So I think, look, I don't think anybody trusts Putin, and they shouldn't. I mean, the guy is not only a war criminal, but he's a liar, and he's proven it. But the fact is that I think we're going to know a lot more whether or not Russia is willing to stop this war.
Right.
If he doesn't come, or if he blows smoke and sends a junior person, like you said, my hope is, as I've said before, I don't want Trump to walk away. I don't think that solves anything. I want Trump to say, Mr. President, I gave you a chance. I thought you wanted peace. You don't.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go hard on the other side, and I'm going to support them. And, so I think Thursday will be a really interesting day. I think the Iranian negotiation, is very important. I think people would like to see us avoid a war.
Sure. Yes.
But I think it's up to Iran. I mean, we've made it very clear that we're not going to tolerate them having a nuclear weapon, and they're either going to abide by that with enforcement and with verification, or they're not. And if they don't, then I do think we are going to take military action, as is Israel. So I think that's for the world's sake, I think it would be great if there could be an agreement that's reached, where you can avoid a military confrontation.
Yeah, I mean, as we said, any one of these things would be something positive. I mean, and that's the way I look at it. I mean, you're kind of throwing a lot of stuff up against the wall, but if any one of those things comes to a good fruition, then it's great. Right? It really is. I mean, we can only hope that that happens. And what I would say, even though I have no use for Trump and his people, but if they could see some success in positive directions, maybe they'll start focusing on doing some things that move in a positive direction instead of blustering going the other way.
You know, I mean, I call this the crazy foreign policy.
Right.
I mean, our foreign policy is so inconsistent and so crazy and so uncertain that I think foreign leaders don't know how to really react anymore. And, you know, by virtue of that, you know, sometimes we're going to pick up some W's along the way.
Yeah, yeah.
So it'll be interesting. Speaking of W's, what do you think of that plane that's sitting on the tarmac that Qatar has offered to our president? Did you see the size of that thing?
Yeah, it's quite a plane. Well, you know, I think that what's very clear is that he's getting so much pushback on that, and now I've heard something today that Qatar said that it'll take till 2028 to re-outfit this thing. So you know, so I think they're saying. We don't want any parts of this anymore. I mean, we thought this was a good scheme, but the backlash is worse than what it became.
I mean, come on. I mean, you could push the envelope so far.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and unfortunately, we've said this all, you know, whether it be with birthright or whatever it might be, you know, we've pushed the Constitution so far that 99.9% of every scholar that would read the law would say, Mr. President, there is no way you can accept a plane from a foreign country like this, and one that is kind of an adversary that's supporting Hamas.
Exactly, right. There's just that part, too. It's not like it's coming from Canada. It's coming from a place where you don't really want to do that. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, Arnie, is particularly since, you know, this – you know, everybody in New Orleans is now related to the Pope, but we have a new Pope, and I think it's really good that we have somebody who's going to continue the traditions of Francis, and he was pretty close to Pope Francis, who was, to me, a true priest and a person who was a real minister of people and dealt with the poor and everything. This guy, being an American, has a kind of particular flavor, but is really that same kind of person, and it seems like he's a good choice for what's going on in the world today. And I think he's going to make some good changes. And there's some things with the Catholic Church you just have to be honest about, and just you know. And it seems like he will address them in the same way, and we're not going to go back to being very doctrinaire and being very hardline on things.
No, well, first of all, just on the background, I just thought it was so cool. You know, that name when they, when they said Cardinal Prevost, there was something that said Prevost. That's kind of a, you know, a name that has some familiarity here. And, you know, then they started to do the research, and I think it was the maternal grandmother's part of the family. And so that was fascinating. And, I mean, all accounts, you know, since the white smoke came out of the chimney, all of the accounts are, this is a man that's going to follow a lot of what Pope Francis believed in. He's a man that serves the poor, you know, wants peace. You know, coming from Peru, you know, has a Peruvian background and an American background. You know, I think it sounded like this was like an underdog that really nobody expected, but the more the Cardinals got to talk to him, the more they liked him. And I guess, you know, I've never been in a conclave like this, obviously, but I think liking somebody and knowing, you know, their personality goes a long way.
Yeah, I think it was all of that. I think he checked a lot of boxes, and I think the main box he checked was he was part of the group that helped to elevate the Cardinals, which Francis has elevated 103 Cardinals of 133 that are out there. And, you know, because of his tenure and a lot of people getting older. So this guy was kind of the person who helped set up your interview with the Pope to become a Cardinal. So he probably knew half of the people before they even got there. So they were familiar with him. And the other thing I think that's really interesting about him, being a Villanova graduate and everything like that, but he's a math major, but he knows 9 languages and can speak fluently. It's like, that is just amazing to me, because in a place like the Vatican, where you can speak Spanish to all the Spanish speaking people, speak Latin, speak French, speak, that makes a huge difference. So, I mean, I think that really helped.
That's, as he goes around the world, that's so important in terms of connecting with the people.
I mean, when he did the prayer the other morning, where he did his first mass, and he started off in English. I mean, for a lot of us, Catholics in America and in the English-speaking countries, we could actually understand what he was saying, not the translation. Right. So that made that's just a different nuance to it, and I think that's needed today in the world being so globally connected like it is.
Well, and I think Pope, Cary, I think Pope Leo the 14th, right?
Yes.
Pope Leo the 14th. He, given the state of the world right now, he can play such an important role.
Absolutely.
And he himself can bring people together. Because we live in some dangerous times right. I mean, we didn't even mention before, the whole conflict between India and Pakistan, which is a little bit calmed down now.
Yeah.
But it could, these are two countries that hate each other and are nuclear. And you need a voice of calm, and I think the Pope can do that around the world. I'm very excited. As a non-Christian, I'm very excited to see what he can accomplish and bringing peace to some regions and bringing people together. And I'm sure you are as well. I'm interested to see where he goes on some of the different policies of the church.
Right. And he's a relatively young person in that he's in his 60s, and like you said, this is going to take a lot of energy. The world moves really fast now, but if he has to travel, and he will travel well in my estimation over the next 5-10 years, because he's young enough to get around and to really communicate with people when he gets there and talk to these world leaders who I think are looking, being honest with you, Arnie, power always abhors a vacuum. And I think they're looking for somebody who can kind of fill that moral void that we're having around the world, with a lot of bad actors running around, running countries and that type of thing.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I think that he is the perfect personality for that. And, let's pray for him, and let's hope that he realizes some success. Well, we have our own battles here in the state of Louisiana. We are, coming towards the end of the legislative session.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest bills that comes out of Baton Rouge every spring is the budget for next year, for fiscal year. And I thought there were some very interesting things that I noted that are moving its way. First of all, on a positive note, the House has included some teacher raises, and staff help raises. Nothing humongous, but after the defeat of the constitutional amendments, where they tried to put it in, those amendments, they have now come back to the table and added some dollars to the budget to be able to help our teachers. And I think that's a really good thing. $2,000 one time will be given to our teachers if this budget passes an increase.
Yes.
So I think that's a really positive thing. The one that really kind of jumped out of the news, we haven't spent much time, and we should, Cary. But one of the governor's major initiatives was this program called Gator, which involves education, whereby money can be provided to families, and they can use it for a multitude of things. Private education, school books. I mean, you name it. But from a bigger standpoint, it was, and I'll have to go back maybe tomorrow and try to pull some of the articles. The response of the public, of the number of applicants to the Gator program, was way more than anybody expected. I mean, very, very much in demand.
Yeah.
And there was never going to be enough money really to fund the program in full.
Right.
But under the budget that's been put forward, they have included a sizable amount. I think it's 90-some million in the budget for this, whereas up until really a couple of weeks ago, the leadership in the House and the Senate, were half of that. We're more in the 40 to 45 million range.
Right.
So it'll be very interesting. I mean, this is truly, this and auto insurance reform, probably the governor's biggest issues and subjects. It'll be really interesting as the budget goes through the process of the House and then the Senate to see at what level this Gator program will be funded and, how successful it's going to be. And
right.
What your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that, some of these things are heading in a positive direction, and I hope that this isn't one of these programs that just undermines the funding of schools and that type of thing. And I don't know that much about it, but I understand what you're saying, and we'll get deeper into it. But I think that, anything that helps people with education and the like in Louisiana, because that's something that's a real problem. And as we talked about the other day on the show about a lot of the projects and things that are happening here that are creating tremendous opportunities in our state that we didn't even have 5 years ago. So I think that people need to really take advantage of anything that can help them out. But yeah. We'll get deeper into that. Arnie, one thing I want to bring up, and I'm going to have to leave at the break.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to bring up was you and I talk about how much votes count. And that millage for the sheriff passing by 2 votes is absolutely what you and I said. And I think you and I are those 2 votes because we advocated for this thing pretty hard. So those 2 votes really counted. And people have to understand that's what we mean when we say every vote counts, because that it passed by 2 votes.
Well, it passed. Will Sutton had a great article over the weekend about the person that demanded the recount. A really interesting guy if people want to go back Sunday and read Will's column. But basically a recount was done, and then they found that there were some votes that weren't counted, and they had to do, as I understand it, kind of a second recount.
Right.
And after all was said and done, the 2-vote victory from a week ago Saturday stayed a 2-vote victory,
right?
To allow the renewal of the millage. Fascinating stuff, I got to tell you, and this has to be the closest election in the history of Louisiana on any election.
Absolutely, it
has
to
been
be.
held.
It has to be,
but I know the sheriff has got to be very happy. And because, look, they needed this money. It's $13 million. It's about 20% of the overall budget. And I think the city council's, also pretty happy about this because they don't have to dip in the city coffers right now and find that $13 million.
And the other part of it is just shows that, a misinformation campaign, because I'm sure a lot of people were voting because, first off, they didn't want to pay any taxes. But the whole, it was a new tax and it really wasn't. But it really showed that if you come out and you tell your story, it really does make a difference. And I'm glad the sheriff did that. So it really helped for it to be, not so much defeated, but affirmed.
Absolutely.
Well, that's going to be it for me, Arnie. I'm going to talk with you tomorrow night. We're going to take a break, and Arnie's going to take the rest of the show and take us home.
I will be back. We hope to come on back the other side of the break here.
On last week's From the Press Box to Press Row with Donald Ware.
Draymond Green is out of control. You can't even talk to him. And then he's trying to argue with the referee. And after he got the technical foul, he continued to argue vehemently in the official's face. He should have gotten another technical foul and thrown out of the game for his behavior. The angry black man, that is a real thing. Okay, that is a real thing. That is a narrative. not as it pertains to Draymond Green. Like, look at your behavior. What is he talking about?
From the press box to press row is one of the hottest sports talk shows in the country. Join Donald each week as he takes you on a journey through the world of HBCU sports and pro sports and interviews with top sports and entertainment figures. That's from the press box to press row each week on your favorite station.
Box to Row, Saturdays at 2 p.m. on WBOK and on the World Wide Web at WBOK1230.com. What New Orleans is talking about.
Hoops, Heat, The Truth, On Demand. Ball Don't Lie is now live on all podcast platforms. Tap in, search WBOK Media, find Ball Don't Lie, and bring the fire with you wherever you go. Download, share, and leave that 5-star review because the game doesn't stop when the show ends.
New Orleans, are you ready for a voice that says what you're thinking? Who that, you might ask? Arrington Gavin. That's right, I'm your guy, host of the Arrington Gavin Show, giving you so much filled with bold opinions, real conversations, and zero sugarcoating. We're going to be diving into the issues that matter, politics, pop culture, and all the above, unfiltered and unafraid. Catch the Arrington Gavin Show weeknights from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Fridays, right here on WBOK, what New Orleans is talking about.
Plan on flying? It's time to upgrade to a Real ID. Because in order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a Real ID, or you'll need another acceptable form of identification. So don't wait. Find out how to get your Real ID at tsa.gov/Real ID. That's tsa.gov/Real ID, or visit your local DMV. And then you'll be cleared for takeoff.
I'm Wendell Pierce. Thanks for making WBOK your station. WBOK.
The Arnie and Cary Show with Arnie Philco and Cary Grant.
All right, we are back. The last 10 minutes of our show. I'm going to bring you home. Cary had to run for an event. By the way, for those that may have just caught that commercial before I came back, you got to get this Real ID now if you travel. You can still use other forms. If you have a passport, they will accept that at the airport. But you cannot just bring a regular driver's license. They're allowing it for a week or so, I think. You got to go through some kind of advanced security. You don't want to do that. That'll just delay your trip. So, got to go to the DMV and get it, or go to another, private source and get it. But you really need to have that if you do any kind of traveling.
Mr. Arnie,
yes.
I just got mine last week, and it's best to make an appointment at the DMV to get it done because the lines are very long, and DMV in New Orleans East, you have to have an appointment there. And you have to bring basically 4 forms of ID, 2 bills, like bills from your house, like your cable bill, your water bill, electric bill. Bring 2 of those types of bills, and have to be original documents. And it's good to also have your birth certificate, your Social Security card, and your driver's license, because they're going to ask for all of that. And it's not free to get them. It's $21 to get the Real ID.
Well, that's good information, because a lot of people run to the DMV and they're not prepared and they don't have the documents, and you're going to get frustrated. So,
yes. So
if you're going, make an appointment, as Wick said, and go to the website, read the things that are required, so that you've got it all. I'm not. Do you know why they started this? What was the genesis?
I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure why it was started. It's like, to me, an ID is an ID.
Exactly. I mean, it kind of came out of nowhere, to be honest. And, I think a lot of people were really unprepared for it. And, of course, given the federal cuts, which are also resulting in state cuts, it makes it harder even to get these things, to make appointments, to have to wait there. It's a pain in the what.
I honestly
but again, I just want to urge everybody, if you do travel, you got to go do it, because at some point they're probably going to eliminate passports also as an alternative use. So you're almost forced to go get it.
I honestly think it's another form of control. That's all I think it is.
Might be.
And also, Be sure to make your appointments as soon as possible because I made my appointment at the beginning of April, and I just got in last week.
Wow.
Last Friday on the 9th, and that was all the way from the beginning of April.
How did you make the appointment, online or by phone?
I went online at, I think it's dmv.gov, louisianadmv.gov, and there's a link you click on for Real ID, make an appointment. And you can make an appointment on there, and you have to choose your location that you want to make the appointment at.
Okay. That's great advice. Really good advice. And, go ahead and do it. Take care of it, get it done, and then you don't have to worry about it afterwards, especially with that kind of lag time. If you're traveling, anytime soon, again, you could still use your passport if you have one. If you don't have a passport, you can go to the airport. You should probably call first and just see how long they're going to allow this discretionary period. But eventually, whether it's weeks or months, you're going to need to have this ID. So go get it. Wick, there was some good news, some developments of things happening in New Orleans. One that I saw I was really excited about is people know in the 7th Ward there's a historic park called Hardin Park.
Yes.
I still have images post-Katrina of the trailers there. I remember them like it was yesterday. And, they announced that they're bringing not only Hardin Park back, but they're bringing organized sports, youth sports back to Hardin Park.
Great.
In a partnership with Nord and a really great group called 18th Ward. And, they're going to have different programs there. And, that's just a real win-win. I know the district attorney, Jason Williams, was a big part of that as well. But, having sports like that, in this area is going to help with our kids. It's going to help with health. It helps with crime prevention. It's just a win-win-win all the way around. So want to congratulate Nord, 18th Ward, our district attorney, and everyone else, because these are exactly the kind of things that we need in our city, especially with summer coming, to give youth an opportunity.
And keep the kids out of
to
trouble.
have some fun and to recreate.
Keep the kids out of trouble. Because I know when I was a kid, we had, when I was a kid, we had Pontchartrain Beach and skate country and the go-kart track out in Metairie. Well, I'm showing my age then. The go-kart track in Metairie. We had a lot of things to do, but now they've taken so many things away from the kids that they are looking for outlets. And programs like this are desperately needed.
Yeah, they are. And, I think this is exactly what the future should be. In my opinion, Nord should be involved in maintenance of the facilities and venue, keeping them clean and upkeeping them, and then creating and outsourcing programming to quality organizations. We have great organizations in this city. Whether it's cultural, like the New Orleans Ballet Association, whether it's acting, we have great groups here. And in sports, groups like 18th Ward, they've only been here for, 5 years maybe. They are doing unbelievable work around the city in servicing our kids. Really want to thank Nord, want to thank, Lowry Cruz, Larry Barabino, and others who are part of this because, just like you said, Wick, especially as we get into the summer months, kids need to have a place to go. They need to have swimming pools open.
Yes.
We can't keep these pools closed like we've done. We've got to do better, and we've got to give them organized things as they come out and play soccer or football or, go inside and listen to music or learn about plays and theater. There's a million things that will interest kids, and we owe it to our community to keep doing it. So, thank you to the folks at Hardin Park. I think this is going to be a really big thing.
I think a really good idea would be that if each park could have a day camp program.
Yes.
I know when I came up, day camps were big. I went to Holy Cross day camp, and I could not wait to go to Holy Cross for day camp. the bus would come to pick me up at 8:00. I was waiting outside at 6:30.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that will keep kids really. We need to keep our kids busy.
Well, we do, and look, out in defense of Nord, I mean, they do run summer camps, and it is an area that's of great interest to a lot of people in this community, and we need to keep doing it. I mean, I could, like you're saying, I mean, I could tell you, I spent my youth in summer camp, and it was an opportunity for me to have fun, to meet other kids, have social interaction. That's very much needed in our city. You can't expect the growth of a child when you don't offer options to that child, be it academic, be it recreational. This is where in New Orleans, Wick, I have to tell you, we can learn from other cities because, there are best practices in Baton Rouge and other communities that do a great job. So let's hope we continue to do these great things. We really appreciate everybody listening tonight. Cary and I are on with Elevated Conversation every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 6 to 7, talking about all kinds of things, politics, current events, sports, whatever is the news of the day. And I hope that you will join us. We will be back tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. Everybody have a great evening, and we will see you in 24 hours. Thank you, Wick.
This is Arrington Gavin, and the Arrington Gavin Show is coming up next on